What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha, and today we're going to be discussing my first week of recovery updates, some things I've been doing on the side in the meantime while I'm not able to run, in addition to some other miscellaneous updates that just kind of show up in the process and whatnot, and maybe, potentially, my season restart for this whole conundrum we're in. So if you're not aware of what's going on, stay tuned because here we go. So first things first, make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video. If you're already subscribed and watching the content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Let's take it from the top, shall we? So, again, this whole recovery vlog series for now is going to be related to the supposed fractured fibula that I have on my right leg. And now, again, the backstory behind this is post-Chicago Marathon, I was having some trouble with the peroneal tendon area, or peroneal longus perhaps, just the exterior side of my right leg during and post Chicago Marathon. And again, I was flying a little too close to the sun after that because I wanted to jump immediately into a speed 10K program to prepare for a race that is specifically today, Sunday, November 7th. There were two races, one of which I was able to move to January, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, I was already sore, and it was just a slow burn after that. Like, all the training I was doing was just making it progressively and, like, slightly worse and worse over time, and I thought that eventually I could get over it and I would be able to, like, recover past it. But after a certain speed session I had, I was, like, hitting the numbers I wanted, which is, like, 5:45 to 6 minute per mile pace for this particular block, and immediately, like, 2/3 into that workout, like, I couldn't do it anymore. Like, the shin was just burnt, and I, like, could barely walk after that. It was just, like, excruciating pain, and I wasn't sure what was going on, and I thought, okay, the peroneal tendon is acting up once again. I'll just sleep this one off, and everything's gonna be cool. And, like, yeah, I was having a hard time walking pretty much that entire day, and then, like, the next day, the pain was still there, and, like, I was still unable to run. For the first time in, like, a while, I'm like, wow, I can't actually do this. Like, how am I gonna figure all this out? Like, okay, I'll just take the day off then, and, so on and so forth. Basically, it got to the point where I found out a week later, when I finally went to the immediate care physician, that they diagnosed me with a stress fracture. At their time, according to the results, both my tibia and fibula. And I thought, okay, like, if I was in fact experiencing, like, fractured or broken leg symptoms, I would not be able to walk the way I'm walking right now. Like, I'm taking, like, at least 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day still, and I'm being diagnosed with a broken leg. Like, I couldn't believe it. I, like, literally asked the physician, kind of like, can I see my x-ray results? And he's like, oh yeah, we saw it and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I was kind of skeptical about it, but they gave me crutches. I guess they took insurance money for that, or, like, whatever copay. I don't think I paid anything for that particularly, but they gave me, like, this big cast on my leg. I got the crutches, and they told me, indefinitely don't put weight on this. We're going to refer you to a sports medicine clinic, or ortho in this case, and they're going to give you, like, a more in-depth procedure on how to go about this. So 48 hours later, after dealing with this cast and whatnot, I go to sports ortho, and that doctor was based. Like, he showed me the x-rays, and he's like, this is what I'm looking at. I see nothing here that indicates your leg is broken. This is, like, inconclusive. We're going to order the MRI, and we're taking you out of this, like, boot. And if you can put weight on it, continue putting weight. You can continue wearing shoes. Just do what makes you comfortable, because he's like, I know you're a runner. If you can run, you can try. But, like, if it's painful, don't sweat it, But, like, do whatever. Just work within your comfort zone is what he said. So I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, that's not the news I was expecting to hear on, my Friday. But what better time than on a Friday to hear that you're free from, like, a cast. So it's been the weekend now. I've been doing a lot of recovery work, and maybe it's just the placebo effect of sports ortho telling you that your leg is not broken, that you feel a lot more, like, energized to start rehabilitation. So I've been very serious about, like, 2-a-day leg days, to the point where the tendons in my legs are, like, tired. They're not sore and they're not exhausted. They're just, like, tired. And it feels like one of those things where, like, you're going to go to sleep and you're like, oh man, this is going to feel great in the morning if I get, like, the right amount of rest after this. So these are kind of some of the things I've been doing in the meantime. So leg day specific, right? Okay, so I'm still working within, like, my core fundamentals of leg days, which is usually box squats, like explosive box squats, Nordic hamstring curls. I'm doing calf raises now to try to stimulate the peroneal tendon and try to like put weight in a way where what's it called? Oh man, I'm already blanking on this. It's the flexibility in your ankles. Dang it. I'll remember this probably a little bit later in the video, or I'm going to write it somewhere. I've already written it. But the point is, I'm trying to increase the flexibility within the ankles now, kind of as I do regularly, try to stretch them out. And like what I'm noticing now, especially now when I'm implementing all this new stuff with like resistance bands, doing single-legged deadlifts on a Bosu ball, etc., is I can do all this stuff on my left leg pretty okay, but when it comes to the right leg, I don't have a whole lot of stability in the right leg, first of all, and I'm feeling other pieces of my leg activate that are kind of getting sore over time, and I'm now wondering if there's overcompensation going on because of something in the peroneal tendon, or I'm like literally not like clicking something in my leg that is basically preventing my peroneal tendon from getting stronger and being like the, or like even the IT band to be the catalyst for maintaining stability on like a Bosu ball. So for example, I'll feel like my glute like gets sore. I'll feel my hamstring kind of gets sore in some places. I feel like the front hip flexor flare up in a way where it's like those parts of my body are activating on the Bosu ball, and I'm not sure if that's what's supposed to be happening. I guess in a way, I guess it should be happening because that's like all stability stuff. I'm just wondering if my right leg is that weak, where those parts of my body are activating now, and they're just like, wow, we're like really exhausted doing this. Like, we need to slow down. Because whenever I do this on the left side of my body, everything feels like 100%. And I understand that there's like a thing about having a dominant leg, and I've always been a lefty in soccer. I've been, I'm left-handed as well, but like there's other things I do right-handed that like normally you wouldn't do right-handed, I suppose. But like I'll hold my fork with my left hand, I write with my left hand, I kick with my left hand, with my left leg, and I play guitar with my right though. That's kind of the weird one. So it's interesting, but this is just something I noticed in the process of rehabilitating the right ankle shin bone area. So besides the stuff I do at the gym, the recovery at home is looking a little bit something like this. Two things mostly going on. One, of course, I'm still, going through the rice method, but mostly I'm icing the ankle at this point in time. Like there's still like a small bump in the area where there's a lot of pain, I guess you can say, or like the most painful point of the ankle shin bone area. I still ice it, and after the ice comes off, like I have like my mobility back. It like feels really good. Like it doesn't feel like there's any pain or whatsoever. But also one of my friends who's also like a personal trainer, and he was like somebody I used to know from my gym, and we hang out every so often. He was recommending going for more of a heat treatment. So take like like a wrap of some sort where you like microwave it and then you just put it on your ankle for like 5 to 10 minutes with the intent that by putting heat on the areas that are sore, you're intentionally causing inflammation in those areas, which in this case inflammation equals blood flow. And if you've got nothing going on where like you have to walk for like 2 or 3 hours, why don't you just cause some inflammation and get over it? So again, there's like two different kinds of like school of thoughts in play here, and I am switching off between like the hot and cold, not frequently, but like every so often. So like if I need to do something and I know I'm going to be walking up some stairs, or I'm going to be doing something that's going to feel like it's going to have a little bit of impact, I'll ice. But if I'm just like sitting at home and like browsing the interwebs, or like doing some work or studying for some sort of exams, I'm just going to inflame my ankle as much as possible to get that blood flow going. So on that note, again, the important thing with this particular diagnosis, if in fact, which I think 100% the tibia is totally good, like I can put weight on the tibia, nothing when I like feel the tibia bone feels like painful. If the fibula is the only bone, worst case scenario, that's fractured, then like I was told I can still put weight on it, which is obviously what I'm doing right now, and I'm like still able to bike, I'm still able to swim, doing squats and stuff, like kind of heavy squats for that matter too. Basically, it's at the point where like again, I guess we'll go into another tangent here. One of my friends on Instagram who we talk, I don't know if he wants me to like say his name or not, but he's been giving me some kind of like pointers and like some tips and whatnot and how to diagnose this and kind of proceed with it. And like one of the things he told me was, of course, like these immediate care physicians, like they're not the brightest crayons in the cookie jar. It's just kind of rephrasing some of the thoughts he told me, and said, yeah, of course, get the MRI. It's like the gold standard for basically diagnosing what's going on. What else did we talk about? That, of course, like rice treatment is pretty good with this overall. And if this is in fact like a fibula stress fracture, it's going to be very tough to tell, like in my current standing without the MRI, because it's not, you know, a weight-bearing bone in essence when you're like walking or like doing any sort of cross-training activity. If you're running, you will kind of activate it because, you know, the peroneal tendon and the IT band do follow along the fibula to an extent. And that's basically the gist of why there would be some excruciating pain while running, is because the fibula does intend to be a little bit more supportive of weight when it comes to running. So again, all the symptoms still seem to align with a potential fibula stress fracture, but it's not the worst possible scenario again. And like from what I've seen in previous YouTube comments as well, if this is a fibula stress fracture, it's almost better just to have a broken bone for like 4 to 6 weeks rather than have like months and months of rehabilitation for potential tendons, potential muscle tears, because those take so much longer and those could be reoccurring issues if they're not done properly. Whereas bones, the breaks are typically clean, I guess you can say, especially like stress fractures. They're typically clean as long as you don't have like a clean break that requires a surgery to like realign or something. So if I was like in a car accident and like, you know, my leg, you just went straight, you know, crack like that, or like a green stick fracture, I think that's what they're called, or a clean break, whatever it is. That's when, of course, you know, things are pretty serious and you got to be very diligent about recovery. But if we're talking stress fracture of a non-weight bearing bone, it's not bad. Again, you still have to be careful. So, you know, props, you know who you are. Thank you for obviously like messaging me and giving me some tips and whatnot. I believe he's a sports ortho or like an equivalent of some sort. And yeah, no, it's just good. You know, I love when people are messaging me either privately or talking to me on YouTube and like giving me some tips and pointers, whether they have some experience on these things or they know or have anecdotes that they like to share. I mean, that's kind of what like the whole running community is about, is just like sharing all these experiences. So if something goes wrong, we are all kind of able to identify what's going on. And again, I try to help people as well when they ask me questions. If they're like, hey, my shins are sore, like I think it's shin splint, like what do I do? And then like, I'll tell you what I did, and there we go, you know. And that's kind of where I kind of put some of these videos out, to also discuss some of my thoughts and whatnot on them. Not that I'm like professional or anything, or wasn't professional at the time of those videos, which kind of goes into our next topic of like, besides recovery and like what I'm doing cross-training wise, what I've been doing in the meantime. So 2 things really happened, more or less. Well, one is continuous and one is just a new development. The first development that occurred kind of a little bit after I initially took some time off from running because of whatever was going on in the shin, was I was looking for a little bit of time into getting some kind of like personal trainer, running fitness, run coach certification. And I never like really studied that type of material. I just know that I've been like living the experience. I've been like reading some things here and there. And there was a certification attempt I saw from the ASFA, which is I think the American Sports and Fitness Association. And they had a free test that said like, if you pass this test, you'll be sports certified. You just have to pay the fee, you know, to get the official certification. I'm like, okay, there's nothing to lose. I'll just take the test and see what happens. So I think it was like about maybe 80 or 100 questions, and you needed to get, I think, 70% or 80% to pass. I think it was 70%. And, you know, I'm just going through the exam, like I'm reading the questions. It's not a huge word salad. It seems like it makes a lot of sense. And like I'm seeing a lot of familiar terms, and like there's some things I'm like not totally sure about, but I'm making like educated guesses on. And like not even 15 minutes later, I passed the exam. So I'm like, is this like real? Like, this isn't like a scam, right? Like like I did some research on ASFA for like 30 minutes before I paid anything to get like the, you know, the official certification. And everything seems to be legit. You know, like LinkedIn was showing up as legit. Other sites were like, you know, saying the same thing. So, you know, after that, I paid the fee for my running fitness certification. So by definition, I'm like able to be a running coach, which is the funniest thing ever. Like, one, I keep telling my friends, I'm like, hey, I'm a running coach now, but I also broke my leg because I'm really bad at recovery and listening to my body. But like, you know, that's kind of the joke that's running around. But on a serious note, like, once this thing starts recovering and everything starts kind of coming back to a better place, the question might be like, what will I end up doing with this certification? So there's two realistic outcomes with the certification overall. One, I could just end up using it, you know, if there's like people on YouTube or Instagram who want to get private coaching from me, or like, you know, anything of that sort of nature. Now, in a way, I guess I'm like legit. I'm able to give you legitimate advice, and you know, I guess that's kind of the route we can take. So I know a lot of people do ask me for advice and whatnot, and I always felt skeptical about giving that type of running advice, only because it's like, well, you know, what kind of like certificate authority do I have? Like, yeah, I have like my anecdotal experience, but like anecdotes are just anecdotes. Like, they're not solid, or like even in a way, I guess, theoretically, like, you could get away with some anecdotes if you're, like, the best in the world, and you're like, this is how I do stuff because I'm the best in the world, and then, like, people are like, ooh, ah, and then, like, maybe that's where, like, different theories and different practices kind of come to place. But I didn't really have anything of that sort. So now, like, I have this certification, I definitely feel a lot more confident giving people some running advice and, like, some tips and tricks and, like, recovery, and then I'll be the first person to tell everyone, like, don't be an idiot like me, like, definitely enjoy your rest days, because rest days are best days. If you're trying to hit some like big mileage or something like that, maybe the idea is less quantity of runs and like better quality of runs, just so you can put in like longer distances and like have some days off, you know, kind of work those things out. So again, if you're looking for like private one-on-one coaching, or you want to like talk to me on Instagram and kind of just like feel some things out, honestly, like, I'm down to answer questions for you guys, especially now that I like feel a lot more confident in my running fitness knowledge to be able to pass this exam. And of course, there's like some things that like were weird on the exam that I never heard of, but then like I read about it later, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like, the one thing that kind of got me was, I believe, let me look this up, because I just pulled this up right before I did this video. It's talking about like the Trendelenburg Gate, which is related to lower hip drop, like when you're running. So like your hips are kind of like uneven, and it causes injuries like in your lower back and like other things like that. And it's related to like the lack of strength in like your quadriceps, for example. So that was like something I didn't know about, but like I was able to like reasonably deduct during the exam like certain things like that. And now like I'm more aware of like, you know, the whole hip thing, and like I've been looking at like videos of myself running. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I don't have like this hip drop, or I don't know if I've had it previously, but like it's definitely not happening right now. Like, the form is in pretty good shape. The only thing in my form that's bad is the way my right foot is landing on the ground, because it's bad enough where like the shoes, as you've seen in previous videos, are like totally shredded on the right foot anterior side, and like now I've got this thing with the ankle. So there's got to be a relation there, right? So I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna fix this running form, even if it means I have to like take it back to like walking, not like baby steps, because you know, I'm no longer a baby, but like taking it to the point where I'm like walking on a treadmill to make sure my feet are landing flat, rather than like one foot angled out and then one is landing flat. That's kind of the point there. So that's option one overall. Option two now is I could also like do, because I remember my mom once talked about this. She works as like you know, a certified public accountant. She was talking about how like she always wanted to get like a real estate license, and she said, I don't remember why I remember this, but she's like, even if I never use it, at least I have it, and like that's more than enough for me. And like I thought about that, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's like kind of a self-validation sort of thing, where like, yeah, even if I never personally coach anyone in running, at least I know from like this exam that I know enough about running to be like considered legit. So not that I'm like looking for validation from an exam like that, but like you feel good knowing that like you've reached some kind of like pedigree of knowledge in this certain activity or this certain subject that you're working towards. So the transition here is like, that exam was so like easy and so fun. I was able to like piece it all together really well, like based on the way things were worded. I was able to find context clues quickly, and I did like, you know, the 70 questions in like 15-20 minutes, or I think it was about 15 minutes. And like now we transition into like my work related exams, which are more CompTIA based, and it's like dealing with cybersecurity certifications such as like the CYSA Plus, Security Plus, and whatnot. And if anyone here on the channel knows how CompTIA exams go, the questions are like word salad, and then you have to like be very careful about like context clues to figure out your answers. So it's like almost the exact opposite of the type of exam I just did for like the ASFA, you know, running coach certification. And this is like one of the big things I'm working on now, is like trying to get that certification just over and done with. I've done the exam once and I did fail it, I think with a 690 out of 750. And I think you need like that score, I think you need a 750 or above to pass. And like the first time I took it, I think was in 2019 before I started working as a cybersecurity analyst. And I was just right out of, I believe I just got my master's in cybersecurity. I was still working as like an IT like field engineer at the time, just like doing like tech things. So I wasn't like in the field, and I didn't understand a lot of the things that were presented before me, and I never really formally studied for this exam either. So now that I'll be taking it like the second time coming up in maybe like a month or so, hopefully I feel a lot better about it, because now like again I work with like more log information, I like see more keywords, I understand more ports, and like the idea is just reading the CompTIA style questions and basically being able to parse the word salad to figure out an answer in like 10 to 15 seconds or less and not turn around. Like work with the instinct, and if something is just really tricky, you know, you'll come back to it later, but like instincts are like typically the best way to go with most of these exams. So that's kind of like one of those miscellaneous items. As I'm not able to run, I have a little more time to sit and study in front of my computer for like 2 to 4 hours a day. So I think that's all I've really got for now. Just kind of these updates are pretty good. I'm feeling extremely optimistic that there might not be a broken bone here. But again, until then, I'm going to treat it as such, at least up until I can start running again without much pain or any sort of soreness. So that, to be clear, I don't feel any pain while I'm running. It just feels extremely sore. So we're just kind of working through that, of course. And then in the meantime, you know, I've got a huge list of things I still want to do with my life outside of the running world. And now, what better time to get all that done than when I'm being forced to rest? So I think I'll end the video here. So if you got through to the end of this, I don't know, go in the comment section below and congratulate me on the 12 new cats I got for Halloween. Let's work with that. I don't know, I just came up with that just now. So write down in the comments below, congratulations on 12 of all 12 of your cats, Phil. And it'll be like something like that sort. So again, thanks for watching the video. Stick around for this update, and I will see you guys probably in the next one.